Welcome to HQ Spotlight on a Wednesday, which can mean only one thing. College football picks involving teams in the AP Top 25. And joining me as they always do, Cover 3 podcast, Danny Cannell and Chip Patterson. I'm Tommy Tran. Both guys, by the way, over 500 last week. Chip, special shout out 14-5 in last week's show. We've got a lot of rivalry matchups, but we're going to kind of go in chronological order. Our producers set it up that way. But it's a pretty good one that starts at noon Eastern with Texas Tech and Utah. But before we get to the picks, Danny, this is a noon game Eastern, 10 a.m. local time. Have you ever played a game and started one before noon?
Heck no. Are you kidding me? I would have hated it. I mean, most college kids, and even including college football players, are not functional before noon. Like, I hate this for everybody involved. I hate it for the players. I hate it for the fans. I hate it for the coaches. The TV networks, I know it's their fault because they have to put something on there and they have a pregame show that leads into it, but there's got to be a better solution than this because nobody wins.
Chip, how does a tailgate at Rice Eccles go? Is it mimosas? Is it Irish coffee? I mean, how does that work out for those who are trying to – you only get their game time? I mean, how does that certainly work out in the lot?
You know, I think this is probably an advantage for Texas Tech. And again, we're going to get into the discussion of this game in terms of the matchup in a little bit, but I think that Utah's student section is one of the toughest student sections to play in front of. And so that's what we're targeting. Like, I'm sure that, you know, the Utah season ticket holders, they're happy to get a little brunch going. I mean, it's fun to make an event of it, but can we get them rolled out of the dorms, down the hill, into Rice Eccles? It's like halfway up a mountain to be able to get there. They need to be in, they need to be loud, they need to be proud. And so can the students be able to get there? I know sometimes you've got promotions. I challenge Utah's athletic department. Let's throw out breakfast burritos, Jenny Dell style, and let's be able to get them loud and rowdy early.
Maybe they just don't go to bed.
Right, they probably
just
stay up,
all night.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Nothing does beat a good breakfast burrito, by the way. You saw the line there. It's a tight spread, 2.5 of the total at 57.5. Again, Chip, you had a fantastic week. I'm going to give you first word here. First half under with a lot of what you talked about here leading up to this game.
Yeah, and also they just don't know anything about each other. And I would say they might not know a lot about themselves because Utah comes out in an opener against UCLA and absolutely pace them, work them in all three phases of the game. But what we've seen from the Bruins says maybe that didn't tell us a whole lot. And also, we've got Texas Tech, which has just absolutely blasted all of its opponents into oblivion. And so we haven't seen either of these teams sweat. We haven't seen either of these teams bleed. And so not only with not having much knowledge about each other, but also without having much knowledge about themselves, I just wonder if this first half is more of a fact-finding mission where they're trying to figure out exactly how they match up against each other. I think I like the full game under as well, but this is a Big 12 game. These are two electric quarterbacks. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call it at 30 minutes. We are over that 4-touchdown number of 28, so I'm going to go first half under 29.5.
I like that play. Also talking about how it takes college kids time to function. They're going to be slow out of the gate, so I would expect a slow start in this game as well. I like Utah. I think Utah is the better football team from top to bottom. I know Texas Tech has done an unbelievable job of going in the offseason, building up that offense, building up the defense. They have been spectacular. I do think the test against UCLA was a little bit more than what we've seen Texas Tech face. And Texas Tech has been a machine with the big plays through the air. But one thing Baron Morton has had a lot of protection. He's been able to sit back there in the pocket, which has been great. And if he's able to do that at Rice Eccles, it could be a long afternoon for Utah. I don't think that's the case. I think he's pressured for the first time. I think they slow down. I think they limit the big plays that they're allowed to go to. And the one difference between these quarterbacks is one is a pocket passer and one is mobile. And that is Devin Dampier for Utah. As long as he stays clean in the turnover column, which he's been perfect so far for the Utes, something he struggled with a year ago against better competition. As long as he's protected with the football, which I think he will, I think Utah's the better team. I love that it's under a field goal because I do think it'll be a closer game, but I'm going to take the Utes and lay the 2.5.
Before we move on quickly, do you guys agree that even though the winner will be the clubhouse leader to win the division, that it's not the end-all, be-all, that the loser of this could still end up being the Big 12 winner at the end of the day?
Very much so. Yeah,
Chip?
You could see these teams face again in Arlington. Now, the Big 12 is wide open and anything can go. There's a TCU still in the mix, Baylor still in the mix. There's a lot of good teams in the Big 12, but I do think right now these are the two best.
Chip, final word?
Yeah, let me echo that. I do think that this might be chapter 1 of 2 in terms of meetings between these two teams, and also that both of these teams could be very different, for better or worse, by the end of the season. It's just a wild game to have with so much importance and so little known about how good these teams are.
Yeah, plus 380 and 4-1, the 20-cent difference between these two teams, and the line is also reflected that under a field goal. All right, let's get to Tennessee and UAB with a spread just under 40, and it was a terrific game against Georgia. It looked like Tennessee early on had it, then didn't, then had the chance, of course, with all the things that happened at the end. Now, the question then becomes, Danny, the letdown part.
Yeah.
And really not so much the letdown that they're going to win against UAB, but are they going to cover the number, you think?
That is a concern for me, and this is typically a DK special right here when you go for the hangover, slow start. But I actually left that game feeling pretty good about Tennessee. Feeling like, you know what, Joey Aguilar, you didn't see much drop-off. In fact, I think you might have seen better quarterback play than they had last year with Nico. And the one thing that has remained consistent with Tennessee is the tempo with which they come at you early in games. They come out firing. They take the shots down the field. They're going up tempo. We saw them race out to the early lead against Georgia and then weren't able to close it out against UAB. I think it's going to be a different story. I think this team, they're not, I mean, yes, it was a devastating loss, but I think they look at that one and like, we just went toe-to-toe with Georgia and we were a field goal kick away from winning that ball game. I think they pick up where they left off. I think the offense starts hot. UAB is struggling, and I would lay them for the entire game, but I got burned a couple times on some of these bigger lines, so I'm just going to tackle the first half number and say that Tennessee is in complete control from start to finish, but I worry about the garbage time touchdowns.
Yeah, so I was trying to talk myself into the over here. Jalen Kitna, UAB's quarterback, has gotten this team up into the 20s in most of the games. And while you can definitely walk out of the game in Knoxville thinking better about Tennessee, I definitely don't all of a sudden feel better about Tennessee's defense, which is down several key players in the secondary as well. But, gentlemen, I kept trying to think about, okay, so how are they going to hit this over? How are they going to hit this over? And I was like, dum-dum. Just take Tennessee. It's the one part of this that you feel really good about. Don't worry whether or not UAB is going to be able to score, because if they do score, that's more possessions for the Vols. And if they do score, that means Tennessee is going to be more encouraged to run it up. I went and checked out the team total, found it under 56. I was like, yeah, that looks about right for this UAB defense. So as the Vols are trying to bounce back and get right, I think that offense is still pedal to the metal. Let's go Tennessee team total over 55.
All right, so you guys are both backing the Vols, and since 2020, they actually have the second best win percentage to cover non-con games. Interestingly enough, Rutgers actually beats them by a hair, but they're 17-5 against the number, which bodes well for you guys, both back in Tennessee. 3 p.m. Eastern in the Pacific Northwest. It's going to be Oregon State and Oregon. It's a big line with a big total here. The Platypus Trophy, because we can't call it what it's been called for a very long time, Chip Patterson here, but you want to grab these points, and I'm curious why, though, because we did see Oregon. Both Danny and I laid it with Oregon at Northwestern and didn't cover here. Take me through the handicap.
Bigger fish to fry Saturday. What does Oregon have coming up? It is a cross-country trip to play Penn State. It is a rivalry game. But, guys, this is, I mean, I'm not going to go Day Train Danny on this. Those are his corners. But the stock could not be lower for Trent Bray, the Oregon State head coach. He is being skewered in the local media. There are columns calling for his job. But you know what Trent Bray is? He was an all-conference player for this Oregon State football program. He has been an assistant or the head coach of this program all the way back to 2017. You want to talk about who wants it more? Who cares? He's probably looking at the end of his coaching tenure, and he's looking at this game, and he's thinking, I tell you what, this is my Super Bowl. So as Oregon does have a game against Penn State in Happy Valley coming up in the next week on September 27th, Oregon State, it is now or never. This is a massive, massive number. And for Trent Bray, the former Beaver player, assistant coach, and now head coach, I'm looking at a circle the wagon Saturday. So let's go Oregon State plus 35.5.
Maybe we can win this one, both of us, because Trent Bray, I think also when he looks down and he looks across the field, he's going to see one of the biggest gaps maybe in the history of this rivalry. And I feel bad for both Oregon State and Washington State. Both of these two teams from the old Pac-12 have really fallen on hard times because they're losing their coaches, they're losing their better players, they're searching for an identity, they're hoping and waiting for the revival of the old Pac-12 or the reimagined version of it, which who knows what that looks like. And it has come at a steep price because there is a major talent gap. When you look at what Dante Moore has done, he has been spectacular. I think the year off did him wonders when he's able to sit behind Dylan Gabriel. The defense and Mateo Uyungale on that defensive side of the ball have been flying around the field. The reason I'm just going to go for the first half, it's at a great number. It's 20.5. It's under those 3 touchdowns. I thought Oregon last year could have spotted their number, but they took out some guys, gave up some late touchdowns for a late backdoor cover for Northwestern. So I'm just going to take the first half, Oregon, 20.5. I'll lay them, say they're in complete control, but I totally agree with you. I do think late in that game, it's like, who cares what the scoreboard says? We want to make sure we're healthy. Everybody's ready to go for Penn State. That's why I'm only touching the first half.
Oregon's won 8 straight and 14 of the last 15 in Eugene. So let's go from Autzen to Doak in Tallahassee, where Florida State had a bit of a break, coming back a big number against Kent State. And I will say this, though. Kent State almost beat Buffalo. I put them in a moneyline parlay. Clemson ruined everything right there, but they actually had it against Buffalo. Home dogs of 23.5, by the way. Again, they almost won straight up. They still obviously cover the number. But do they cover the number this time against your Noles, DK?
So you know what's going to happen here in the press conference after the game? Mike Norvell is going to be once again apologizing and saying, I took out my starters. Like, we're still just playing football. We're just calling ball plays, because that's what Gus Malzahn is absolutely. He is having so much fun running this offense against East Texas A&M. I was surprised. He's unloading the bag. He's showing all these exotic formations. He's calling reverses, taking shots down the field. I don't think that changes against Kent State. I do think they get their backups out there, but I think they're going to stay aggressive with the backups, because the one thing this team is a question mark for Florida State is depth. So they need to get a lot of their younger players and backups experience, and they want to have them running the system on both sides of the ball. I think this is going to completely overwhelm Kent State. I think Florida State rolls. I think they put up a big number yet again, win and cover.
Yeah, let's just stack them up, boys. Let's go first quarter. Let's go first half. First half, by the way, is my best bet for our official record keeping, but I'll take them in the third quarter. I'll take them in the fourth quarter. I think that Florida State right now is in full control of its future, because they understand exactly who they are. They know what they do well. They know their limitations. They know where they need to improve. And that, to me, is more dangerous than maybe even a team that has more talent but is still figuring things out. Just an incredible job by Mike Norvell. The humility it takes to bring in someone like Gus Malzahn, give them full control of an offense that Mike Norvell very much had his hands on for much of his tenure since arriving in Tallahassee. You get rid of some assistants that have been part of your guys. You bring in Tony White, get some steps forward there. Yeah, I think this is just a really, really important season right now for Florida State, and so far they're capitalizing. Again, best bets first half, but I do think they're going to end up winning big.
Talk about a totally different vibe. I mean, I was there in Tallahassee a year ago. I spoke to their quarterback club. I was there last week. There is so much excitement around this city, around the city of Tallahassee, but there's also like a renewed youthfulness to Gus Malzahn. Like he said, he was going back to where he felt like his old high school coaching days, where he's drawing up plays and trying new things, and he's got the athletes to do it. He's having a ton of fun. I think to Chip's point, like they realize something is special potentially brewing, and after what transpired last year, they are not going to let this opportunity slip by.
Which we saw, because in that game 2 weeks ago, it's like you threw anybody out there, like second string, third string. They couldn't keep scoring. It's like, we don't want to actually score, talk about running clock, and yet they was, 77-3, which was their largest win in program history. And for Kent State, they had a chance to snap the longest FBS losing streak at 24 games, couldn't do it last week. Let's spend some time on this next game in Norman, Oklahoma, Auburn, and the Sooners. Chip, just from a storyline perspective here, what interests you most? Is it as easy as the quarterbacks here, or is there something else here?
I think that there is the quarterbacks, but also what it means for Brent Venables and Oklahoma. I mean, and Hugh Freeze certainly has his own, hot seat future conversations, but this game's in Norman. This game is in front of the Oklahoma faithful. And Brent Venables made a decision, as he started to rework the offense and change over the play callers and bench Jackson Arnold and put Jackson Arnold back in. And the rope-a-dope that eventually led to Jackson Arnold's departure, well, now here comes Jackson Arnold. So it's a Jackson Arnold revenge game, yes, but it is also a reputation game for Brent Venables, because all of the goodwill that he might have gained from that big win against Michigan in week 2, I tell you, that can go right out the window if Jackson Arnold goes into Norman and is able to handle an Oklahoma defense that Brent Venables has put his hands all over and really taken control of. Like, that to me is what's in the spotlight, because Hugh Freeze will have other moments in other games, but for Brent Venables, the Texas game is always at a neutral site. This is one of the biggest games on home turf that are left this season. If you are a season ticket holder, if you are a booster, this is a game that you are absolutely circling and looking at to try to decide whether or not you think Brent Venables is the man for this job moving forward.
I'll take the other head coach, because I think this is a big game for Hugh Freeze, because remember all the conversation in the offseason. It looked like a mess. It looked like a potential dumpster fire was brewing. I was hard on Auburn and Hugh Freeze saying, man, this thing looks ugly. They go and get the win against Baylor, although their defense did get sliced and diced from Sawyer Robertson for 393. They've started off undefeated, but I'm worried a little bit that it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. And I think even Auburn fans are a little bit tentative, saying, I don't know if I'm sold on Jackson Arnold just yet. So I think Hugh Freeze has a ton to prove here in this spot. If he is able to go on the road and beat Oklahoma, that would completely shake up the hierarchy of the SEC, which does feel wide open, just like a lot of other conferences. But if he's able to go on the road and get the win here, then all of a sudden you have to start taking Auburn a lot more seriously.
There'll be a couple of quality wins away from home. They opened up the season against Baylor, so Jackson Arnold took care of a Dave Aranda-led team, now goes up against Brent Venables. So the spread is 6.5, so it's under a touchdown. I just keep thinking, Chip, you mentioned the Michigan game right around that 4 or 5 number, and Oklahoma looked really good. I lean Oklahoma in this spot, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on the side and what's your best play for this game.
All right, so on the side, I definitely lean towards Oklahoma. I think that they are a little bit more of a complete team, a little bit more of a team that, again, similar to the Florida State conversation, they know exactly who they are. They know what they do well, and a lot of it's going to be thanks to John Mateer. Now, they live by the sword, die by the sword. They let Mateer take some risks. He could end up costing them a game at some point down the line, but in this particular game, I think that they've got a real advantage against Jackson Arnold. We were talking on the Cover 3 podcast about how Brent Venables can just call up the practice film, look at all the places where they were able to confuse Jackson Arnold, where he just did not see it, and they can try to bait him into making the same kind of mistakes. But my best bet for this game is going to be to tackle the total. It's going to be to go ahead and grab the under. I know that we like to talk about key numbers here in our conversations. 48.5, that's not a great number, but it is in line with the type of game that I am expecting, because I do think that Jackson Arnold is really going to struggle against this Oklahoma defense, but at the same time, man, this is the best defense potentially that Oklahoma has faced so far. And John Mateer against Temple, man, he did enough so that it was never an issue, but I can't say it was the cleanest game. A lot of that was Temple self-inflicted wounds and Oklahoma's defense being awesome to set up some short fields. So I'm thinking that in this particular spot, it's going to be a little bit lower scoring, a sweaty one to be able to come under the total, but I think the total is still going to be my best bet.
Tommy, you mentioned the Michigan game, which was interesting because it never felt like Oklahoma was going to lose, and yet Michigan had the ball a couple times, and you're like, can they get this cut down to a field goal potentially? Could they cut it down? They never could. But if you also go back and look at the numbers, there was a big Justice Haynes run, a 75-yard run. There was one other big pass play. There were like 2 explosive plays. Other than that, Michigan wasn't able to do anything. I think Auburn could have a little bit more offensive success, but it's interesting because we've got like this revenge factor of Jackson Arnold going to play his old team. We haven't really seen this historically in college football, but because of the portal, we're seeing more situations like this crop up. I faced this one time in the NFL. I was on the Falcons, and I was playing against my old team in the New York Giants. And you know all that I heard when I was out in that field? Michael Strahan laughing, saying, "Ha, you're not protected now. I'm going to get you." Like, because he never could hit me in practice. And I was like, "You didn't sack me?" He'd be like, "Yeah, I would have." Those Oklahoma players, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to want to get their licks on Jackson Arnold. Nothing that they don't like him. It's just that they faced him in practice, and I'm sure there were opportunities for them to hit him, and they couldn't. Now he's live. I think this Oklahoma defense is special. I think they're potentially the best in the SEC. The Auburn pass game has been a little bit herky-jerky. They have not been able to get their wide receiving core going as what you maybe thought they could, considering how talented they are on the outside. So I think Oklahoma wins this one comfortably. I'll lay the 6.5.
Lay it with OU. Take the under from our guys at cover 3. Kickoff at same time at Vaught Hemingway is going to be Tulane and Ole Miss. 11.5-point spread with a total of 61.5. A couple of notes here. Ole Miss hasn't covered the last 2 games against Arkansas and Kentucky. But the quarterback issue with Jake Retzlaff, I think we're going to be fine. Austin Simmons, though, didn't start after hurting his ankle against Kentucky. Came in for a handful of plays for Trinidad Chambliss. This is from Lane Kiffin Monday saying about Simmons, quote, "He's doing good. I would anticipate Austin being fine to play and being our starting quarterback." So, DK, what does that news tell you, again, now that we're midweek, and you like the total here targeting this game?
Yeah, I like it even better now because I thought Trinidad Chambliss was going to take the starting job from Austin Simmons because of the way he operated in that system. Austin Simmons, the offense has not been clicking on all cylinders when he's been in there. He struggled with the interception bug. He had 2 against Kentucky. I'm on the under here because Ole Miss's defense has been a little bit of a sieve, and they gave up a ton of points. But that was to Taylon Green. And no offense to Jake Retzlaff. I think he's a really good quarterback, and I think he's been great considering he got there so late in the spring after leaving BYU. But I think this is one where you see Ole Miss go a little bit more to the ground game, running the football, trying to establish that. I think Ole Miss defense does not give up as many big plays as they've given up to Arkansas. I could see this game playing out a little bit more like the Kentucky game did. I think Ole Miss wins, but if it's a lower scoring, I kind of like chip side too. So I'm taking the under on this one on the total. 61.5 is too many.
Yeah, I mean, this is a job interview, right? I mean, no free ads, but, choose your favorite job site. Be they, the types that are just going to get you the candidates. And while Ole Miss might not be looking for a coach, they might. Maybe Lane Kiffin gets a call from somewhere in the Sunshine State, or maybe this is just an audition for an SEC job. Or maybe this is just the kind of spot where Ole Miss just messes around. I do not think that Ole Miss's defense can be trusted. I don't think that Ole Miss's defense, even going up against a talent in total for this Tulane offense that might not match the Bobby Petrino-led Arkansas offense, I still think Ole Miss is going to struggle to get stops. That Jake Retzlaff making plays with his feet are going to be able to move Tulane down the field. So, number one, of all the coaches in America, when it comes to trusting your injury updates, I'm sorry, I'm putting Lane Kiffin at the bottom of that. But number two, I don't think it matters. This is just the kind of college football game where Ole Miss, with everything they've got left to play for, and Tulane, with the opportunity that they have to be able to go try and log a win that could help their college football playoff hopes, because everyone was ready to put the USF Bulls right into the CFP, but they got to get past Tulane, and Tulane's like, hey guys, I thought we were the class of the conference. I think the Green Wave mess around. I think the Green Wave hang inside this number. I think we are all flipping over to this game on a side screen to say, wait a second, is Ole Miss about to lose? So with all that, 11.5, that's too many daggone points.
This series has been dominated by Ole Miss, but they first played in 1893, so it'll be a series renewed that we'll see there in Oxford. Moving on to South Bend, we're going to have Notre Dame, which is still ranked in the top 25 despite losing their first 2 games, albeit close against Miami and Texas A&M. 24.5 at home against Purdue, which covered at home in that inclement weather delayed game against SC. Not that Danny and I are salty about that one either that we had last week here. But you guys are both talking about Notre Dame and points here. So, Chip, take me through yours first because you got another team total here of what we're having at 39 flat here for the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I trust Notre Dame's defense about as much as I trust Lane Kiffin's injury updates. I don't want any part of that. This is called best bets, not best guesses. And any idea of how Notre Dame's going to play against any opponent when it comes to the defensive side of the football, in my opinion, that's going to be a best guess. But I like C.J. Carr. I know we got 2 games right now of C.J. Carr playing against power conference competition, and I think he looks really good. So I think that for Notre Dame, when we try to think about how do you respond to the 0-2 start, I think that what we can count on is that Notre Dame's offense is going to try to go out and continue to build the confidence for their new starting quarterback, that C.J. Carr is going to go out there, continue to be pedal to the metal. And so I was looking around and I saw that team total was just a shade under 40. And so my thought, Danny and Tommy, was like, Mike Denbrock is thinking we need to put a 40 burger on the scoreboard. I think they put a 40 burger on the scoreboard. Notre Dame team total over 39.
I like your play because that falls right into mine. I trust Notre Dame to score. I do not trust their defense to get many stops. And even if they do, Ryan Brown was a little bit of a turnover machine last week through 3 interceptions. There could be pick sixes in the play late in this game. But I think if we just saw Notre Dame put up 40+ versus an SEC defense in Texas A&M, I trust them to put up big points against Barry Odom's squad, even though I do think Purdue is a lot better. But I also think Purdue will be able to score on this one too. So I'll go ahead and take the over on this game, looking at it saying, you know what, there's going to be a lot of points in this one. They got Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price going in the backfield. I think they want to keep growing with C.J. Carr in the pass game. Jaden Greathouse had a couple big plays. I think that offense is pretty explosive, and I don't trust the defense, so I'll just go over the 54.5.
Both bets would have cashed last year, 66-7, I think, in West Lafayette there between Purdue and Notre Dame. And is it the Shilla, not the jeweled one that SC has to do, right? With Notre Dame, is it the Shilla?
Layla?
The Layla. Okay, I'm just making sure I pronounced it right, but it's like the Shilla trophy that they have between these two as we're talking about rivalry weekend. Georgia Tech enters the chat here as a top 25 team by virtue of their victory over Clemson in Atlanta. More than 3 touchdown favorites against Temple, which we talked about with their game against OU. So this one's at Bobby Dodd. DK, another total play for you because you were rooting for points in that Clemson game last week too.
And think about how they played out. How many times they got down to the red zone. One, they scored too late. Another one, there was a 4th down conversion. They got stopped. But I do trust this Georgia Tech offense to put up points with Haynes King or Aaron Philo, because Haynes King was banged up a little bit in that game, and our boy Brian McFadden has dubbed him Rocky Balboa as his nickname because he always looks like he's hurt, he's going down, and then he comes back and he keeps coming. But I don't think it matters who plays quarterback, and if you play both, I wouldn't be surprised. And Temple, I thought they were facing one of the best defenses in the SEC. We talked about that last week against Oklahoma. I do think Georgia Tech's defense is good, but I still think Evan Simon could have better numbers against them in this game. So I'm going to tackle the over here. I think it's a little bit of a higher scoring game.
Yeah, Casey Keeler, the Temple head coach, has a lot to be able to coach up in terms of Temple not meeting the moment with Oklahoma in town. I know they were really gassed up internally about the chance to make a statement. And like I mentioned earlier with the Oklahoma analysis, I think there were a lot of self-inflicted wounds for the Owls that they can learn from and take on the road here to Georgia Tech. And excuse me for thinking that Georgia Tech just might get caught up in the buzz on what exactly happened over the last weekend. Like, excuse me for thinking that Georgia Tech might be feeling itself just a little bit and might not start on the front foot quite as well. You mentioned Haynes King or Aaron Philo. Aaron Philo played not Haynes King against Gardner-Webb, had 373 passing yards. They are very capable with their backup quarterback. But for me, a little bit of a vibes play. Temple comes in angry. Georgia Tech is feeling itself. I'm just going to go first half. Georgia Tech is the much better team, but Temple first half plus 13.5.
I do think something to note, and I don't think Brent Key cares about this, but we just talked about Oklahoma and what they did to Temple in Philadelphia, a very convincing win. I could see a scenario where, let's say, Oklahoma's 9-3, Georgia Tech's 10-2, and you have to fall back to the strength of schedule and common opponents. I hope Georgia Tech kicks care of their business. If that's a long shot, but we've seen crazier things happen before. Just something to tuck back there as if we're comparing resumes at the end of the season.
Which they can do if it gets close. We need to hit a break here on HQ Spotlight. Our second half of games will be tackled next. Big Ten on CBS has Michigan at Nebraska. DK will be there in Lincoln to watch the quarterback matchup that is Bryce Underwood and Dylan Raiola. Welcome back to HQ Spotlight. You know that music. Michigan at Nebraska from Memorial Stadium in Lincoln. 11th meeting in series history. Wolverines lead 6-4. Notable meeting came in 1986, the Fiesta Bowl, which Michigan won 27-17. Bo Schembechler and Tom Osborne on the sidelines way back when. All right, back here with DK and Chip. Danny, you're going to head there for college football pregame. Are you the only one that's actually been to a game out there? Do I remember that correctly?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else on our crew has been there. I called the game there with Mike Riley was the head coach, and it is one of the best college towns, atmospheres. The Sea of Red is real. They've got the sellout streak that is, is the longest in college football right now. They're very cordial to the opposing team, but yet they can get loud, they can get nasty when they need to be. I cannot wait to head back out to Lincoln. It's going to be awesome. It
should be fun. The spread is interesting at 2.5 with a total at 45.5. But if you are a Huskers backer, here's a look at what they've done in the last 6 home games against ranked teams. Have they covered? The answer would be no, with various spreads, some close, some not so close. The most recent one was against Illinois, which we'll talk about the Fighting Illini a little bit later on. So you guys are actually on opposite ends of this game of a short spread. So 2.5, a little bit of a cover 3, showdown. Yeah. Danny, I'm going to give you first word because you're backing the team that has lost 6 straight against ranked teams at home.
I am. All trends are made to be broken at some point or another. At some time, that roulette wheel, if it's hit black every time, red has got to pop up sooner. And what better time for the red to pop up than this time? So I'll give you a couple things that concern me in this game for Nebraska, because I do think historically they've struggled against the bigger physical teams, and Michigan's about as big and as physical as it gets out there. The trend I am following is the trend of young quarterbacks on the road. And Bryce Underwood has had some experience. He already did that against Oklahoma. We talked about that game earlier in the show, but his numbers weren't quite the same. And I would say, most importantly, we didn't see him run. Now, we did see them starting to open up the run game and that offense as Biff Poggi is the interim coach. No Sharon Moore. Chip Lindsey's cooking all of a sudden. But I do think the competition might have had something to do with that. And for Nebraska, I think the key to me is to make sure Bryce Underwood doesn't go off with his legs, because in the one game they had against Cincinnati at Arrowhead, we saw Brendan Sorsby. He didn't throw for 100 yards, but he did gash them in the run game. I could see a similar game playing out to the way that one did. Lower scoring. I don't see a ton of points because I still think Michigan's defense has their issues, but I don't think Dylan Raiola is going to be lighting them up either. They've been a little bit more short controlled in the passing game. I think it's a little bit more of a defensive slugfest. I think Nebraska's gotten past some of their hurdles in one-possession games. I'm going to say Nebraska gets a big early season win here and wins the game outright. I don't even need the points.
Oh, a little money line sprinkle for laying it down. Chip, what do we think on the other side for you?
Yeah, I mean, what? Enjoy that plus 115 on the plus 1.5. Yeah, anyway. So my Michigan bet here is a bet on Bryce Underwood. It is a bet that Bryce Underwood will be better in this scenario because of what he had to endure playing against Oklahoma's defense, which I think is a much better unit than Nebraska's defense, and playing in front of those Oklahoma fans, which is probably a comparable road environment to what he'll face in Lincoln with the Sea of Red. It is a bet that what we've seen from Bryce Underwood in terms of seeming to get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more comfortable each and every week, that continues. Because when you go through and you see the way that he's able to handle himself in the pocket, when you see the throwing power, when you see the accuracy, when you see, as Danny mentioned, his escapability and the way that he can burn an opponent with his legs, my pick of Michigan minus 2.5 is that Bryce Underwood really might be special. And look, I could be proven wrong because there are a lot of young quarterbacks in situations like these that are not able to get the job done. And the spread shows you that this is going to be a tough one-possession game. But I just think that Bryce Underwood is a quarterback that right now, with a lot more yet to be known, I might take that bet over Dylan Raiola. And so Bryce Underwood might be something really special. This might be his breakout game on America's Most Watched Network, the Network of Stars. That's what I'm calling back in Michigan right here.
Hopefully Jenny Dell and company won't have to deal with any weather like she did in West Lafayette, which is a 2 or 3 hour delay for that SC game. And if they can do it, Dylan Raiola and Matt Rhule will be the Cornhuskers' first 4-0 start. Say that 3 times fast since 2016. South Carolina catching nearly double digits. They were actually, as of this morning, 9.5 against Mizzou. Tigers coming in ranked 23rd in the country here, and a total of 47.5. This is a Saturday 7 o'clock game here. As we're taking a look, Missouri last 6 games against South Carolina. You see the spread, you see the result. But the big news here, of course, is Lenore Sellers, who left the first half and that lost to Vandy with a concussion. So as of Wednesday morning, it was 11.5. But we've seen and read news that there's some optimism. So now the line's at 9.5. Danny, I'm going to give you first word because you felt good with Mizzou at 11.5. This Lenore Sellers stuff, how much does that play into how you want to play this game?
It definitely impacts it. But, like, are we getting Lenore Sellers that was promised in the offseason, or are we getting the one that's actually played this year? Because I still haven't seen him showcase any of the potential that he showed either last year or, you know, when we thought he was going to be the breakout star for the SEC potential. He's a great kid, but he just has not lived up to that yet. I also wonder how he's doing. I mean, if he did get knocked out of that game, I wonder how prepared he is for contact and how much he's going to be a willing runner in that game against Missouri. But the number one reason that I am going to back Missouri, did you see their hype video this week?
No.
I mean, Chip Patterson is all over that bad boy, and nobody fires up a team with a Chip Patterson soundbite in their hype video. Bo Pribula is playing quarterback as good as anybody. It's probably the best kept secret right now in the SEC. Also, road environment. We've seen younger quarterbacks struggle. That's been a theme of mine until I see some go out there and actually have success on the road. And I know you don't have to win the game. You have to cover. But I think Missouri is one of those teams. Their schedule sets up nicely. This is one of the games at home that I think they can win. I think they're playing with a ton of confidence. Eli Drinkwitz, once again, has done a pretty good job finding and developing a quarterback, even though it wasn't the one he chose to start the season with Sam Horn being out. But I still think Missouri is the way better football team right now. I did not love what I've seen from South Carolina early, especially losing at home to Vanderbilt. I know you lost Lenore Sellers, but you still gave up 31 points. Like I'm having my concerns about South Carolina and where their season goes from here.
Yeah, I know you still gave up 31 points, so that's kind of where my starting point is, because for South Carolina, I didn't want to have to touch the will he, won't he for Lenore Sellers. And like you mentioned, DK, will he, won't he be able to put the team and the offense on his back in this scenario against a Missouri defense that we saw Kansas put up a lot of points, but defensively, I know they're very stout up front. I think Missouri's offense is absolutely humming because Bo Pribula, as you mentioned, 10 touchdowns to just 1 interception. That's 7 passing. That's 3 rushing. He's playing with total confidence right now. He understands where the ball needs to go and what he needs to do to take advantage of the defense when he's looking at. They had some portal additions at the skill positions that I think have been absolute hits and absolute fits for what they want to do. And so that's why my best bet here is just going to go with the Missouri team total. Take the Lenore Sellers out of it. I just think that Missouri is going to be able to score 30 points against this South Carolina defense, so I've got team total over 29.5.
Okay, looks like also with the news there, the total's ticked up from 47 to 48 or 48 and a hook, depending on where you're looking at right now, so just to keep that in mind. If we get to Florida and Miami, another game in South Florida at Hard Rock Stadium, again, we're working our way to night games right now. Before we get to the actual play, here's a look at DJ Lagway, Danny, and give me a sense of, like, the 5-pick interception performance last week, because he only had 5 in his previous 7 starts combined. So what did you see against the Tigers last week?
I cannot relate to it because the most interceptions I ever threw was 3 because I was too afraid to throw a 4th or a 5th. Like I thought, oh, I'll get taken out of the game, I'll get benched. But they don't really have any depth at quarterback. Harrison Bailey's behind him. Billy Napier was in afs about that. And I don't think he was thrilled with that line of questioning because I do think he worries about DJ Lagway's confidence. I saw a quarterback similar to Arch Manning, some of the struggles he's had against way lesser competition, struggling to see the field, forcing the balls when they're not there, and then just some inexplicable throws that you're like, what is going on? To me, it's more of a mental issue with him. And also, throwing the ball 49 times with a young quarterback in general, I would advise against, especially when it's against LSU at night. And I would advise against it against Miami at night, against that defense. So that to me is there was too much exposure, too much weight put on DJ Lagway's shoulders in a really tough spot when he came into this game not playing great because he didn't play good against South Florida either.
I bring it up because as poorly as he played, they could have covered against the Tigers. And Chip, that line is 7.5 last week, and it's 7.5 this week. So it seems a little fishy to me. I don't have a strong, take on this game right here, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on how it all play out.
Oh, Tommy, I've got a very strong take on this game, and Danny's going to be the first one to hear it. You as well. This is probably making the card for Thursday's Locks Pod because At this point, it might be a principal play. I think Miami is one of the best teams in the country along both lines of scrimmage. I think Carson Beck is doing an unbelievable job. I think some of their skill position additions, you look at a C.J. Daniels, JoJo Trader, the true freshman, all of it's fantastic. I do not trust this coaching staff to carry Miami to cover a spread of more than a touchdown over the course of 60 minutes. So last week, we were on Miami in the first half, minus the 9.5. They brought it home. And this week, we're going Miami in the first half, minus 4.5. I do not want to have to be sweating how they cover 7 and a hook over 60 minutes, but they can definitely cover 4.5 over 30.
Another game we potentially could both win our sides, even though we're on different ones, because I'm going to look at the whole game. And I'm going to take the Florida Gators. You mentioned it. They could have covered against LSU as a 7.5-point underdog there. I think they get Jaden Baugh going, their running back. In a perfect world, I think DJ Lagway only has 27, 28 attempts where you can kind of have him in 19 of 27, somewhere in there. Give him some confidence builders early. But more importantly, and Carson Beck has looked awesome, and they have looked explosive, but he's had all day behind that offensive line to sit back there and throw. I don't think the protection's quite as clean. I do think Florida's defensive line is going to be able to push some guys into his belly, in the pocket, and make him a little bit more uncomfortable. He did have 2 interceptions against USF. One wasn't his fault, but the other one was. He's been a little bit turnover prone in some of these games to try to force the issue, and that to me is something to watch out for Florida's defense. Do not give up the big play because they have thrived on it so far. I think they'll do a pretty good job of that. I also like the under in this game for the very same reason. I think this game could play out similarly to the Notre Dame game. Was that 27-24, something like 27-20, somewhere in there, where I do think Miami wins, but I like Florida a lot with the points, and I like the under the total.
It was 41-17 last year with Cam Ward and DJ Lagway in that game. But again, Miami first half for Chip, and Danny full game with a bit of an underplay, the 51 and a hook. Top 20 matchup here with Illinois and Indiana out in Bloomington, where Indiana's laying 5.5 with a total at 52 and a hook. Now, this game actually opened 4.
Yeah. And
now we're seeing 5 and 5.5 here. So, Danny, you're on the team that grabbing the points. So you welcome the 1.5. And does it give you any caution in terms of why this line is ballooning?
No, not at all.
You?
I mean, I'm going to back my guy Tom Fornelli in his Fighting Illini. I'm shocked that this line is moving the way it has. In both of these teams, I don't feel like we have a great feel for them this early in the season, although at least Illinois was tested against Duke, and they did go and get a nice road win where they forced 5 turnovers and they chased around Darian Mensah. Gabe Akis is a problem coming off the edge for the Fighting Illini, and I do think Fernando Mendoza has been really good. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns last week in a blowout game, and they've been handling their business, but I do think this is the first test for them. I think it'll be a lower scoring affair. I think it'll be a field goal type game. I would actually sprinkle some on the money line with Illinois. I'm just more of a believer in them because I've seen them. Now, Indiana, clearly, this is a huge test for them early, but I do like Luke Altmaier, trust him a little bit more in the system. They haven't been able to run the football, but the thing they have been able to do is work the short passing game because he's so accurate. He's so comfortable in Barry Lunney's system. He gets the ball out of his hands. I trust him a little bit more than I trust Fernando Mendoza yet.
I think we have an incredible opportunity to capitalize on the misconception about who these teams are and what their matchup is going to be. Because, Danny, I see it a little bit differently. And I think we talked about this on Tuesday's Cover 3 podcast, but I'm with Tom. I think this game's higher scoring. I just think that the veteran leadership of both of these quarterbacks, the urgency that will be there for a back-and-forth game under the lights. Good offenses can beat good defenses, and I'm not sure if either one of these defenses is necessarily going to be able to stop the other. Again, you're thinking Big Ten game and Brett Bielema, and you're just you think that it's going to be 27-24, but I look at this as a game that's going to be decided into the low 30s. I think it's going to be very close, very competitive. Like you said, I love a little Illinois money line sprinkle here, but because I think there's going to be that urgency with 2 very good quarterbacks, you get into the late stages of the game, there's enough explosive players for both of these teams that I think we hit the long touchdowns that this thing ends up going over 52.5.
First ever meeting when both teams are ranked in the Associated poll, and 74th meeting overall between Illinois and Indiana. Same time, 7:30, kickoff at First Bank Stadium in Nashville. It's going to be Georgia State catching just under 4 touchdowns against Vandy. We've been talking a little bit about Vandy and South Carolina, obviously. They're 20th rankings, the highest they've had in like 17 years. You guys are both on the Commodores laying the big number, 27 and a hook.
Yeah, they were an incredible story last season. They're off to an incredible story this season. That was a dominant win. They got outscored Virginia Tech as well in Blacksburg. They've had 2 really impressive wins. Last year, they beat Alabama. They almost beat Texas. But you know who they lost to? They lost to Georgia State, and that was one of the biggest surprises, letdowns of the season last year. You think there's any chance Clark Lee hasn't reminded that? Diego Pavia hasn't been reminded of that game last year? If there was ever a chance for a letdown, all he has to do is go show him that game film from last year. I think it's revenge here for Vanderbilt. They look really, really good. We were talking earlier in the week on the Cover 3 about what the ceiling could be, and it's like, why can't it be 9 wins? Why can't it be 10 wins? And this is on their way there. I think they win their next couple of games starting here, and I think it's a big win. I'm going to lay the points.
Bingo, DK. I was just going to say this is a spot where you would think that Vanderbilt might let up off the gas and that 27.5 is too many daggum points, except for 36-32. I mean, it is all over that facility. It is all over that weight room. That they are talking in the meeting room about the season that could have been last year, about what the win total could have been, about the bowl game they could have gone to, about the things that they could have accomplished if not for stumbling in a 36-32 loss against Georgia State. Now, the Panthers, to look at the opponent here, are sliding very quickly in the CBS Sports 136, in the Chipolytics FBS Power Rankings. I mean, we're looking at a bottom of the Sun Belt type squad here. So you also must take that into consideration. Do they have the goods to be able to pull off any kind of upset? My answer is no. So I think that Vanderbilt, with the motivation of last year, takes care of business. I like them minus 27.5.
Just the second meeting, 36-32 last year, referencing that victory against Vandy for Georgia State. LSU, third-ranked team in the country against Southeast Louisiana. No line as of midweek here on Wednesday. Still having one of those matchups depending on the opponent, of course. So score prediction, Chip, both of you guys like the Tigers in a big way. But the big question is, did the offense start getting going? Because they've only scored, I think, 60 points through 3 games, which has been obviously a concern.
We won the game, Tommy. Yeah. For a group of seasoned professionals, I would think you would be a little bit better than that. You're spoiled. You're spoiled. And LSU's going to score about 7 touchdowns. I think I got this, 49? Yeah, 49-3. I say they score 7 touchdowns on 10 possessions, and we pack it up and we get ready for our next game.
I had slam at 45-7. Maybe I would even lean towards 38-7, because the one thing I do wonder is Brian Kelly was asked about the run game. I do think they try to run the football, and as we're finding more out about Garrett Nussmeier and this oblique or torso issue that he's got, I wonder how much they want to expose him in the pass game. So I think it's more of a business-like, let's get in, let's get out. So maybe a little bit, not as quite a blowout as we think, but their backups could get in and run up the score as well. So either way, I think it's a big LSU win.
Do you guys think it's going to be a big Texas win? Have we talked about Arch Manning enough?
Oh my
goodness, everything that's happening on with Texas. 0-3 against the spread. Ohio State, we know, then San Jose State, then UTEP. So right now, Sam Houston with a number just under 40, Danny.
Day trader Danny dabbled in the Arch Manning market and just scooped up just a little bit.
I think like 35-1 or something lately?
No, I'm not touching the Heisman. I'm just talking for day trader Danny, where you just buy a little bit of Arch Manning. And somebody said that's like buying Bitcoin. I was like, you mean a bleep coin? It's basically what you're looking at right now, because it has been bumpy. He has been as shaky as I can. I can't even fathom how it's gotten off to such a rough start. But I have to imagine he's going to get back on track. Sark is going to do everything in his power to get his confidence up before he goes to Florida in their next game in the SEC. And the other thing that Sark has really relied on is his legs. He's been running the football. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last week, as well as the passing touchdown. So I think Arch plays his way out of it somewhat, enough to where they get the big win in the cover, because I don't know if this defense is going to give up any points whatsoever.
Man, I am so tired of hearing about all Texas's offensive struggles, and we are ignoring the group that is being let down. Maybe one of the most let down units in the country. Texas's defense has still been awesome. So I would like to spend my time with this particular game celebrating one of the SEC's most talented defensive units. And so what I'm going to do, it's time for sicko mode, let's go. I'm going to say Sam Houston first half team total under 2.5. Okay, so Arch Manning has a snap over his head into the end zone with safety. We're still good. But I am rooting for a goose egg, for a first-half shutout from Texas's defense. Texas's defense needs some shine. I'm going to give it to the Longhorns. I'm going to say hook 'em, first-half shutout. Sam Houston first-half team total under 2.5.
Chip has had some success. He took under San Jose State full game 7.5 against Texas, and that cashed. Last but not least, we've got Michigan State catching about, 18.5 against USC at the Coliseum. This is a late kick on the East Coast. This is like Big Ten after dark with an old Pac-12 team. Yeah. 56.5 is going to be your total. Chip, I want to go right back to you because you like the team total market here. How are we playing the Trojans?
Yeah, this is all matchup related. So what did we see from Michigan State's defense against Boston College? Great job, Sparty. You were able to come out with the victory, but good gracious, your defense was carved up by Dylan Lonergan and Boston College's wide receivers. And you know what? I would take USC quarterback Jaden Maeva over Dylan Lonergan. And do you know what else I would do? I would take USC's wide receivers over most wide receiver rooms in the entire daggum country. So if Michigan State's defense is getting carved up by BC through the air, I absolutely think that one of the best passing attacks in the country is going to be able to have some success here. Late start, strange game, lots more that USC wants to have its eyes on. Now that it's up, really starting to let itself be known on a national level. The one thing I feel confident about is they're going to score some points against this defense. So I'm going USC team total over.
Agreed with everything you said. The only reason I'm going to go ahead and lay the points here is because as much attention as Lincoln Riley's offense is getting, his defense has been playing lights out. Number 1 in the country in sacks, 14 sacks. You know who's struggling to protect the quarterback? Michigan State. Aiden Childs is going to be running for his life. We know what happens when he gets in a little bit of trouble, gets a little bit turnover prone. He's been better with it, but still, I think that could be an issue. I think USC wins and covers. I'm going back to the well. Even though they burned me last week, I think they get it done this week, so I'll lay the 18.5.
I might have to just jump on with you out of principle, because that was tough. The delay really hurt us, and we do like the Trojans, who, by the way, didn't crack Brandon Marcello's top 25, I don't think. Wow. So he doesn't have any love for the Trojans, even though they made it into the top 25 in the Associated poll. Chip, Danny, guys, certainly appreciate another good week of picks. Cover 3. They've got more on Thursday with Bud and Tom Fornelli. Scan that QR code. Check them out on YouTube. The guys deliver every single day for you. Make sure you follow them today.